So we'll start with this second, what you can say, lecture on this protein targeting. This is the usual disclaimer, which I will again not go into the details. So what we actually learned in yesterday's lecture was that broadly, you have two types of ribosomes, those which are free in the cytoplasm and those which are bound to the endoplasmic reticulum. And these two have, the responsibility of synthesizing broadly two different categories of proteins. Proteins which are meant for lysosomes, these are major destination. Lysosome is a major destination. Those which are excreted out of the cells, those which are secreted out of, not excreted, those which are secreted out of the cell, secretory proteins, and those which are part of plasma membrane. All those will be synthesized by ribosomes which are bound. And those which are soluble proteins which remain in the cytoplasm, enzymes or some other function, those which go to the nucleus, those which go to the mitochondria, cytoplasm, peroxisomes, all of them will be synthesized by ribosomes which are free in the cytoplasm, right? So targeting to these three organelles or these three destination is lot more elaborate. It's lot more complex compared to this targeting. Why? Because we have in yesterday's lecture we have understood that first a signal sequence appears. This signal sequence is identified by signal recognition particle in the cytoplasm. Then they dock on the signal recognition particle receptor, SRP receptors, and those proteins still being synthesized, they are directed into the endoplasmic reticular lumen, right? And in endoplasmic reticular lumen, they undergo lots of processing. Okay. So once they are in the so first we'll understand this because we have some good idea about lysosomal targeting and plasma membrane targeting. So we'll understand this first. So once in the ER, in yesterday's lecture, towards the end of my lecture, I was telling you about this, that once they are in the ER, they are not folded immediately because synthesis is still going on, elongation is still going on, and you will find all along the in the ER lumen that you have proteins in different stages of translocation. So protein concentration on the ER lumen becomes very high. This is one point. And the second point is that since you have so many proteins getting translocated adjacent to one another, there's always a possibility that one polypeptide chain may intermingle with the other. Okay. So to avoid that situation, there are chaperone proteins. So this is a new word that we introduced yesterday. There are chaperone proteins in the ER lumen, and their responsibility is that they will keep the protein in unfolded form and they will not allow them to intermingle with each other. Okay, so these are like caretaker proteins. So till the protein synthesis is completed and till they are properly folded, they don't intermingle with other. It is the responsibility of the chaperone to keep them safe, separate. Chaperones usually have slow ATPase activity, ATP hydrolyzing activity, right? In the ADP form, typically they have very high affinity for the unfolded proteins. Okay, in ADP form, they will have higher affinity for the unfolded protein. Besides chaperone, ER lumen also contains proteins and factors which are required for proper folding. Okay, in particular, mention of these two enzymes should be done. That one is protein disulfide isomerase, which is responsible for, catalyzing the disulfide bond formation in polypeptide chains. Okay, it can be intra-chain, it can be interchain. So those disulfide bridges, they will be catalyzed, their synthesis will be catalyzed by this particular enzyme. And there is one more peptidyl prolyl isomerase. This is responsible for cis-trans configuration. Wherever proline is there in that bond, so this enzyme is responsible for that. So these two enzymes are there. Besides these two enzymes, there are other proteins also, there are other factors also, which are required for proper folding of the proteins. Okay, so chaperone, one major chaperone in the endoplasmic reticulum is BIP. BIP. Okay, if you expand it, it becomes binding protein. BIP is a major chaperone. Important, you must remember. BIP is a major chaperone. When you expand it, it is binding protein. It has a mass of 78 kilodalton. It is a member of heat shock protein family. Heat shock protein family, HSP, is heat shock protein. So it's a member of this particular family. Okay. So you have protein families, and this particular BIP, binding protein, it belongs to this particular family. Molecular mass is around 78 kilodalton. And what is the characteristic? It is highly conserved. Conserved means it has not undergone any change over a long period of time. The amino acid sequence of this protein has remained same. It has not undergone any change over a period of time. So this is what is meant by conserved protein. So there are only a few proteins which are conserved. Otherwise, all proteins, their polypeptide chain, the sequence of amino acid has undergone some change over a period of time due to evolution. But this protein, this BIP, a chaperone in ER lumen, hasn't undergone much change over a period of time. And it has got distinct ATPase, ATP hydrolyzing domain, and peptide binding domain. With the help of this peptide binding domain, it will bind to the unfolded polypeptide chain. So this is the BIP cycle. So you have C means chaperone, ADP. In the ADP form, C means chaperone, and it is in the ADP form. And it is in the ADP form, it has got higher affinity for the unfolded protein. U means unfolded. U means unfolded protein, and C means chaperone protein. Right? So the unfolded protein will join. So you will have unfolded protein chaperone ADP complex. And then since it has got a built-in ATPase activity, there will be an exchange of ATP for ADP. So ATP molecule gets in and the bound ATP comes out. So you have unfolded protein, chaperone, ATP complex. So in the ATP form, this chaperone doesn't have much affinity for the unfolded protein. It has got higher affinity for the unfolded protein in the ADP form. So when there is an exchange of ATP for ADP, it loses its affinity for the unfolded protein. So unfolded protein is given away. Okay. And then what you have chaperone ATP complex. And since chaperone has got a built-in ATPase activity, that ATPase activity will hydrolyze the ATP. So PI will be liberated and it will get back into the ADP form. Okay. So it is ready for accepting the same unfolded protein or a different unfolded protein once again. It is only in the ADP form that it will accept the unfolded protein, or it has a higher affinity for the unfolded protein. So please understand, this cycle will continue as long as the protein gets completely folded. Okay, this cycle will continue. So you can now understand that it is energetically expensive to, till the time the protein gets synthesized in the ER lumen, keeping it separate, not allowing it to intermingle with other polypeptide chains. Okay, it's energetically expensive activity. Okay, this chaperone protein, it will undergo this cycle every time. It will bind to an unfolded protein. There will be an exchange of ATP. In the ATP form, it doesn't have much affinity. So it buys time. Unfolded protein will be given away. Then that ATPase activity will hydrolyze ATP. It will get back into the ADP form. It will again bind to the unfolded protein. Okay, so it is a way of buying time till the protein synthesis gets over. And second is the protein gets properly folded. Okay, please remember, unless the protein synthesis is complete, protein folding cannot take place. So for folding to take place, it is necessary, it is required that protein synthesis is completed, right? So this is one major chaperone, BIP, and this is the BIP cycle. That is how it will buy time and will keep the protein safe, protected, not allowing it to intermingle with other polypeptide chains till it becomes fully folded. Now, the second thing that happens in ER lumen is that many proteins, particularly secretory proteins and membrane proteins, they undergo glycosylation. Glycosylation means addition of oligosaccharide units. Okay, in fact, in this protein targeting, there are two types of glycosylation. One that takes place in the ER lumen, it is called as core glycosylation. It takes place in the lumen of the ER, core glycosylation. It is basically the major glycosylation step, and some addition, deletion, modification of the oligosaccharide unit takes place in the Golgi also. That has been termed as terminal glycosylation. So please understand in the first place what is meant by glycosylation. Glycosylation means addition of oligosaccharide units. Oligosaccharide means where you have more than 2-3 monosaccharides added to the protein, okay, to make it a glycoprotein. So majority of the proteins are glycoproteins, particularly those which are secretory, and those which are membrane proteins, they are glycosylated. So they will undergo glycosylation. So what is that glycosylation? Generally in ER lumen, a pentasaccharide. So you understand what is meant by pentasaccharide. Pentasaccharide means an oligosaccharide which is made up of 5 monosaccharide units. And what are those 5 monosaccharide units? Of the 5, there are 3 mannoses, and there are 2 N-acetyl glucosamine. This is the short form for N-acetyl glucosamine. Of the pentasaccharide, there are 3 mannoses and 2 N-acetyl glucosamine, amino sugar. Okay. Generally, this pentasaccharide का भी, composition pre-decided hai. Generally, it is made up of 3 mannoses and 2 N-acetyl glucosamine. Okay, that is generally added in the endoplasmic reticulum. Okay, where they are added, I will come to that little later. But in some cases, a larger oligosaccharide made up of something like 14 monosaccharide units, it is added. And those 14 monosaccharide units, the composition is also known. Of the 14, there are 2 N-acetyl glucosamine, there are 9 mannoses, and there are 3 glucoses. Okay. In majority of the cases, you will have a pentasaccharide added, but in some cases a larger oligosaccharide is added, which is made up of 2 N-acetyl glucosamine, 9 mannoses, and 3 glucoses. Right? We are talking of what? We are talking of core glycosylation. Addition of oligosaccharide in the ER. Generally a pentasaccharide, but in some cases a 14 monosaccharide long oligosaccharide is also added. Where are they added? These oligosaccharides are added, they are transferred at 2 specific places, either to amino acid asparagine. Okay, there are 2 places where generally these oligosaccharide units are added. One is amino acid asparagine, and the bond is called as N-glycosidic bond, or amino acid serine or threonine, and the bond is called as O-glycosidic bond. Okay, so there are 2 different types of bonds. Both of them are basically glycosidic bonds. Okay, but when it is transferred to asparagine, amino acid asparagine of the polypeptide chain, the bond is called as N-glycosidic bond. And when it is transferred to amino acid serine or threonine, then it is called as O-glycosidic bond. Okay, so how is that larger oligosaccharide, which is made up of 14 monosaccharide unit, it is assimilated? So basically it is assimilated on a, it is pre-assimilated, assimilated on a activated carrier, not carrier, carrier. The name is called dolicol phosphate. It's a lipid carrier, dolicol phosphate, right? It is a long lipid made up of some 20 isoprene. Isoprene का मतलब होता है which is made up of 5 carbon units, C5 units. So there will be as many as or anywhere between 15 to 20 isoprene units. So it's a very long lipid molecule. Okay, and this oligosaccharide that we are talking about, that 14 monosaccharide long oligosaccharide, it is pre-assimilated on this dolichol phosphate. Okay, the terminal phosphoryl group of this dolichol phosphate, it is this site, it is highly hydrophobic. This dolichol phosphate is highly hydrophobic because it is lipid made up of some 15 to 20 isoprene units, and the terminal phosphoryl group is the site of attachment of the oligosaccharide, right? And who donates those monosaccharides? The donors of the monosaccharides are derivatives of UDP or GDP or dolichol phosphate. Okay. Who will donate the monosaccharide in this assembly of oligosaccharide? They will be derivatives of UDP, uridine diphosphate, monosine diphosphate, or dolichol phosphate. And the reaction will be catalyzed by transferases. These are enzymes which are there in the lumen. So they are present both in the lumen as well as in the cytoplasm. Okay. And once this entire unit is synthesized, then N mass A, means the complete unit as such, will be transferred to either amino acid serine or threonine by O glycosidic bond, or amino acid asparagine by N glycosidic bond I told you. Let us see how does it get assimilated, what is the sequence. So you have dolichol phosphate, which is the carrier. And then, as I said, of the 14, there are 2 N-acetyl glucosamine molecules, there are 9 mannoses, and there are 3 glucoses. So the first N-acetyl glucosamine molecule is a derivative of UDP. Transferase will catalyze, and this reaction, please understand, is taking place in the cytoplasmic side. This reaction is taking place in the cytoplasm. Okay, so this is the cell. Okay, and this is the lumen of the endoplasmic reticulum. So this is cytoplasm. Okay, the reaction is taking place here. Then the second molecule of N-acetyl glucosamine will be added. Again, it is a derivative of UDP. So you will have dolichol phosphate to N-acetyl glucosamine. Reaction catalyzes by transferases which are present in the cytoplasm here. Then 5 mannoses will be added, and they are derivatives of GDP. Again, catalyzed by transferases. So you will have 5 mannoses to N-acetyl glucosamine joined to dolichol phosphate. I will be showing you the structure of dolichol phosphate also in the next slide. And then after this, after the addition of 7 monosaccharides, 5 mannoses and 2 N-acetyl glucosamine, it gets translocated across the membrane. This is the ER membrane. So it will get translocated across the membrane. The entire thing will get into the luminal side. Okay, I hope you can understand. Okay, so this is the membrane, and everything was taking place here in the cytoplasm, and then the entire thing will get translocated across in the lumen here. It will come here. So the next set of reactions will take place in the luminal side, in the endoplasmic reticulum. So therefore I said transferases are there in the cytoplasmic side and transferases are there in the luminal side. In the luminal side, you will have addition of 4 more mannoses. Of the 9, 5 were added in the cytoplasm. So remaining 4 are added in the lumen. And there are 3 glucoses, they are added in the lumen. And they are derivatives of dolichol phosphate. So 7 dolichol phosphate will be freed. So now you will have 2 N-acetyl glucosamine, 9 mannoses, and 3 glucose. So you will have that oligosaccharide unit synthesized on the dolichol phosphate, and it is the luminal side. And then N-mass A, this entire unit, complete unit, gets transferred to the target protein. And what is the site of transfer? Either amino acid asparagine or amino acid, it can be serine or threonine. Right? So this is how that oligosaccharide unit will be synthesized and will be transferred. Let us see the structure of dolichol phosphate. So this is the structure of dolichol phosphate. This is what I was talking about. I was telling you that this is the isoprene unit. No, it is made up of 5 carbon. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So N is what? N is anywhere between 15 to 19. It can be up to 19. So it's a very long molecule, you can imagine. Okay. The number of isoprene units can be 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, something like that. And this is the terminal phosphoryl group. This is the site where this oligosaccharide will be added. It will be attached over here, right? Oligosaccharide will be attached over here, terminal. And since it has got this isoprene unit, okay, it's highly hydrophobic. It's a lipid molecule basically. Okay. And what are the types of bonds? I told you there are 2 types of bonds. One is called as N-glycosidic bond. So this is the polypeptide chain. And there is one asparagine amino acid somewhere here. So asparagine has got a side chain CH2CONH2. CH2CONH2 is the side chain of asparagine, amino acid asparagine. Okay. And this is your oligosaccharide unit. So it will be added to this amino group. Okay, this is what is called as beta glycosidic bond. So with the help of beta glycosidic bond, this entire oligosaccharide unit will be transferred to amino acid serine, amino acid asparagine. And this bond is called as N-glycosidic bond. It is in beta configuration, please remember. Second is O-glycosidic bond. So again, the same polypeptide chain is there, and you have amino acid serine. The side chain is CH2OH. Okay. Again, this oligosaccharide unit will be joined. Again, the bond is of beta configuration. So only thing is that it will be transferred to OH of the serine or OH of the threonine, and therefore it is called as O-glycosidic bond. It is transferred to amino group of the asparagine, and therefore it is called as N-glycosidic bond. So hope you understand what is meant by these glycosidic bonds. Okay, so there are quality checks. I told you, so lots of processing takes place in the ER lumen. The proteins get properly folded. Okay, so Chevron makes sure that proteins are properly folded, fully folded before they are exported from the ER. Unless they are properly folded, they will not be exported because that is a point of no return. So complete folding, all interchain, intrachain, disulfide bond formation, glycosylation, everything will take place in the ER, and in the completed protein only will be exported from the endoplasmic reticular lumen. So only fully folded proteins are allowed to be exported. So there are quality checks. The protein undergoes several rounds of glycosylation. It should be glucosylation. Glucosylation and deglucosylation. Several rounds of glucosylation, deglucosylation. Apparently looks like a futile exercise, but because of this, several rounds of glucosylation means addition of glucose, and deglucosylation means removal of that particular added glucose. During this process, it buys time so that proper folding, interchain, intrachain, sulfide, disulfide bond formation can be ensured. Glucose residues are added by an enzyme called glucosyl transferase, and they are removed by another enzyme, glucosidase 1 and 2. There are 2 enzymes, they will remove. So it will go in a cyclic manner. Glucosyl transferase will add glucose, and glucosidase 1 and 2, they will be removing the glucose. And there may be several rounds, right? Making sure what this is a, what you can say, just killing time or you can say buying time, so that making sure that the protein is properly folded. There is one more chaperone, it's called as calnexin. This chaperone protein, it binds to glucosylated protein. The protein which has got glucose residues added by glucosyl transferase, this will get bound to the calnexin. And as long as it is bound to the calnexin, it cannot be exported. So I have been telling you that it is just basically, buying time, just passing little time, so that making sure that proteins are properly folded. So when the proteins are glucosylated, they will be bound to another chaperone protein called calnexin, and a glucosylated protein cannot be exported. If it is glucosylated, it is a sign that there is something still to be done. The protein is not properly folded. Let us see that cycle also. So the derivative which donates glucose are again UDP derivatives, UDP glucose, it will donate glucose. So glycoprotein in the lumen, a glucose molecule will come and join. A glucose molecule has come and joined. It has been added, right? And the enzyme which catalyzes this is glucosyl transferase. Okay. And the glucosylated protein gets bind to calnexin. Calnexin is another chaperone protein. So the protein with glucose molecules added will be bound to the calnexin. There is enzyme glucosidase 1 and 2. What do? They will be removing this bond. They will be hydrolyzing this bond. They will be removing this glucose. So glucose will be freed. And you will have glycoprotein. So during this process, if it has been folded, all right. If it has not yet been folded properly, then it will acquire one more glucose molecule. So glucose will be added, it will bound to calnexin, then the glucose will be removed, and you will have glycoprotein. So it has bought some more time. If it is not yet properly folded, it may undergo this glucosylation, glucosylation again and again. So this will continue till this protein gets properly folded. Whatever is the native three-dimensional conformation of the protein is there, unless that has been achieved, that has been attained, this will undergo like this. Please remember that protein only in their fully folded form, with all interchain, intrachain disulfide bridges, disulfide bonds, glycosylation, all this has taken place. Only then they will be exported out of the endoplasmic reticular lumen. So the next is Golgi apparatus. So Golgi is called as GPO, General Post Office of the cell. What is meant by that? That means, sorting of the protein. Till that time, there is no sorting. We have just seen the pathway synthesized from the bound ribosome. They got, translocated into the lumen, undergone modifications in the lumen, folding in the lumen, and then they're exported from the lumen. And all of them have come into the Golgi apparatus, where actually the sorting will take place. Typically, in eukaryotic cell, the Golgi is made up of 6 cisternae. There are 2 cis importing end, there are 2 medial cisternae, and there are 2 trans cisternae. ऐसे मिला के जो है कुल 6 sacs होंगे उसमें. So this is one sac. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, there are 6. Usually there are 6. It can be 5 also. So the importing cisternae, they are called as cis. So maybe these 2 are cis, because they are nearer to the endoplasmic reticulum. Please remember this endoplasmic reticulum. And these black dots are nothing but they are ribosomes. So you can imagine all over the membrane of the endoplasmic reticulum, that rough appearance is because of the bound ribosome. and all of them, they are synthesizing protein, and those proteins are getting translocated. So you can imagine the number of different types of polypeptide chains and different stages of translocation and different stages of synthesis elongation. They are there in the lumen. Okay. So you have two cis cisternae, there is one medial cisternae, and the exporting end is the trans cisternae. So proteins, after proper folding, they will be bundled out in these transport vesicles. These are the transport vesicles. So they will bud out from the transport vesicle and they will join the cis cisternae. Okay. But before that, once they are in the Golgi, the carbohydrate units of the protein may undergo further modifications. So I told you glycosylation or modification in the oligosaccharide units taking place in the Golgi is called as terminal glycosylation. So some modification will take place in each sac of the Golgi. So we'll primarily look for the lysosomal proteins. So in lysosomal proteins, 2 mannoses are removed and 2 N-acetyl glucosamine and a fucose. Fucose is a sugar, are added in the medial Golgi to proteins meant for lysosomes. I told you we are right now primarily talking about lysosomal proteins. So what happens to lysosomal proteins? Whatever may be their oligosaccharide units, from that 2 mannoses are removed and 2 N-acetyl glucosamine and a fucose is added. In the trans, another N-acetyl glucosamine followed by 1 galactose and a sialic acid. They are added to form the complex oligosaccharide unit. We are talking about lysosomal proteins primarily. And then transport vesicle mediate transfer between ER and Golgi. These are the transport vesicles. They will bundle out containing the protein. Their cargo will be protein, and they will then fuse with the Golgi cis end, means importing end cis Golgi, and then in the Golgi in different sacs, it will undergo further modification as enumerated, as listed, as mentioned in this particular slide. Okay, so we have now some insight into the biochemistry of the transport vesicle formation. So this is the donor membrane. So this membrane, is a fluid mosaic. So protein what will get accumulated over here and it will bulge out like this. And the size of that bulge is something like 75 nanometer. So 75 nanometer vesicle will bud out from the donor membrane, and immediately they will be covered by a set of proteins. They are called as coat proteins. Alpha. There are 4 types of coat proteins: alpha, beta, gamma, delta, COPS. COPS means it's a short form for coat proteins. A small GTP binding protein called ADP ribosylation factor is also required. It's a GTP binding protein. When vesicles meet the recipient membrane, the GTP of the adenosyl ADP ribosylation factor will get hydrolyzed and GTP and the coat proteins will be released. So you can see these are the coat proteins and this is ARF, which is a GTP protein, ADP ribosylation factor. So once they meet the donor membrane, the one in yellow is a donor membrane, the GTP will be hydrolyzed because it has got a GTPase activity and the coat protein will also leave. So you have this vesicle in the balled form. Okay, and then it will fuse. It can fuse because the membrane is a fluid mosaic. So the fusion is facilitated by name-sensitive fusion factor, NSF, ATP, fatty acyl coenzyme A, and several other factors. The meeting will end anytime, but we'll continue. Thank you very much. I think in time I have finished.